The BS Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects.
First of all,
This is the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
it might be cool, I don't know. And if it's not, I don't
The
care.
BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Bill Simmons works for ESPN. He's also named the Sports Guy, and he writes a comical sports column. He must be a popular dude.
The BS Report.
It's got a real dirty sound, like a rusty steak knife cutting through a well-aged steak.
Now.
Here's Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the BS Report. Tuesday morning, about 36 hours after Super Bowl 47. I was there in New Orleans. Cousin Sal was there in New Orleans. We did not do a pod yesterday because we were traveling. It's a little late, but that's all right. Cousin Sal, what's happening?
What's happening, man? I don't know why you'd want me on. I said it would be a lousy game. The Niners would blow them out, and it'd be unforgettable. So,
Yeah, it was something. We, Tuesday after the Super Bowl is always like a tough day
yeah,
because it's the official end of football season. You just feel depressed.
Right.
But then in rapid succession today, Fox announced Gus Johnson was doing the 2018 World Cup.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
The World Cup is in soccer? That
The World Cup is in soccer. So that happened. Then Keith Law released his 100 top prospects list, which is like one of my 5 favorite internet pieces of the year.
That's pretty exciting. I glanced at it, and the Mets have 3 in the top 100. So that's
Yeah, including the guy you got from the R.A. Dickey trade,
That's
which
nice.
I was very surprised Toronto traded that guy, the catcher.
yeah.
And then the coup de grace, a 3.5-minute Fast and Furious 6 trailer.
I don't give a crap about that. But yeah, good for you.
What?
I don't know. What you love that nonsense.
Nonsense! How dare you? For one thing, you watch professional wrestling. How dare you call Fast and Furious
Wait
nonsense?
a minute. Don't you compare professional wrestling, a national institution, with these cockamamie films they put together.
What has worse acting?
You pretending to like Fast and Furious?
Pretending? What are you talking about? I've probably seen the first 6 a combined 100 times.
Oh, my God. All right.
Oh, well, I'm doing a post for Grantland today about the trailer, really breaking it down.
Nice.
I don't know if you realize, but Liddy's coming back.
Who is?
Is Vin's old girlfriend. She thought she died. He was there at the accident.
Oh, I didn't know that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, she's back for
All right.
Fast 6.
Oh, I take everything back. Take
Yeah.
it all back.
All right, so this Super Bowl game that we went to.
Yeah.
By the way, for everybody listening, waiting for the results of House Seats, we're going to get to that at the tail end of the podcast.
Yeah.
So, 28-6, Kaepernick. We're sitting there wondering if he might get benched.
Right. Yeah, we were
Alex
watching
Smith.
Alex Smith's body language on the sidelines, and he started almost in the stands with us. Couldn't care less about the game, and inched his way closer and closer to the sidelines, and more of a huddled mass around him. But
Yeah, he's warming up. He's ready. Alex Smith was like, "Oh, please let this keep going. For the love of God, one more Kaepernick."
Yep.
And even though his stats weren't terrible, I thought he looked. I just didn't think he looked right. And when that blackout happened,
Mhm.
he had just taken a bad sack. He got tackled by somebody's finger.
Yeah.
And it was 3rd and 13. They're down 22. And the crowd was into it. And at that point, it really started to feel like it was going to be like a 45-point blowout.
Yeah.
Like they weren't going to get the third down. Baltimore's going to get the ball. They were going to score, and the game was going to be over. And then the blackout happened. And Bill Barnwell, who we're probably going to call in a little bit, who is a fervent believer in momentum being a myth.
I thought you were going to say conspiracy, but yeah, go ahead.
No, he doesn't believe in momentum.
Right.
And I'm telling you, I was there watching both sidelines and stuff, and then that blackout changed the momentum of that game.
Well, it did, but immediately the immediate play was they didn't convert the 3rd and 13, 3rd and 14, so they punted and then had to hold the Ravens.
Yeah, but remember, like the first 15 minutes of the blackout, which
Yeah.
I don't think they could show on TV. The Ravens sideline, they're on the field, they're stretching, their guys
Right.
are walking toward the fans and yelling at them because it was mostly Niner fans in the lower bowl.
Right. And
It was,
Harbaugh was losing his I mean, he was John Harbaugh was.
John Harbaugh's going
out.
crazy.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, on the other sideline, we were sitting on the side that had the Niners sideline, and they looked just devastated and shell-shocked for the first 50 minutes. They're all just sitting on the bench.
They're talking about Fast and Furious. They're like, yeah, what are we doing after this?
Frank Gore was sitting there with his head down. They just looked like a beaten team. And we were saying even before the blackout, like they just weren't tackling and hitting like by the third quarter, you just had a feeling like they were out of the game.
Well, and we had bet at halftime, we bet the Niners giving 6.5 in the second half. And we were very confident. I don't know why. I don't know what we saw in the first half.
They were down 15. Well, we thought Kaepernick would get better.
Yeah. And then Jacoby Jones returns the opening kick for a touchdown.
And
we think we're buried, and then the lights are out. Yeah.
And the Ravens the Niners receivers looked like they were a little scared, and everything looked bad. And then so 3rd and 13, they run it like a safe play. Kaepernick checks down and 6 yards. They punt, and at that point, Baltimore, the game's over. Baltimore's going to go down and score, but somehow 3 and out, and then all of a sudden touchdown. You and I start hitting each other.
Yeah.
Another 3. Flacco gets sacked. Another 3 and out. The Niners come down again, and that game passed the point where you're just like,
Ray
wow,
Rice, fumble. Yeah.
They're gonna win this game.
Yeah.
Because of that stupid blackout, and it's gonna be like one of the most famous things that ever happened.
Yeah.
And somehow the script didn't follow that way.
We were in the middle. I think people at home knew more than we did about this blackout, and it's dark and everything, and we're hearing like, this is what happened before Katrina, and the lights could go out a bunch of times, and there could be a riot here. Like we're getting whispers all around. I'm like, oh crap, maybe I shouldn't be trying to tweet funny things right now. Maybe I should figure out an exit plan. But
well, I was getting flashbacks to that Bruins-Oilers Stanley Cup Finals game when they had the blackout, and actually the game ended. They had to cancel it, and then they had to come back and play it, and so we're sitting there, we're in somebody's suite, we were talking about. What would happen if they had to like postpone the game till the next day? Would people stay? Like everybody's leaving on Monday morning, basically.
Yeah. I wonder what time they would have tried to keep that going. I mean, if there's a curfew or what, but would they have gone past like 1 in the morning? There's already a 4.5-hour game as it ended.
And then we found out that the power had gone out like twice during different rehearsal things during the week.
Yeah.
So then the question was, well, even if it comes back, is it going to go out again in the fourth quarter? Yeah. It was quite honestly the weirdest sporting event I think I've ever gone to.
Yeah. And that third quarter was the weirdest. You're not going to top that. Just with the back and forth and the lights and everything.
It was 34 long minutes. Like I was surprised that was the final time limit. I thought for sure it was like 3 hours. That's how it felt like. It was so boring. But anyway, I do believe it changed the momentum of that game because within about at about 25-minute mark of that blackout, the Niners, Harbaugh's going around, he's yelling at everybody trying to get them back in, and Kaepernick, he starts throwing, it was just between that and the halftime show, there was just so much time that had elapsed since the first half. It almost felt like we were starting a different game.
Yeah.
And
there are a lot of momentum killers at the Super Bowl. I mean, the halftime is, what is it, like 40 minutes by the time it's all said and done?
Right.
And that Sandy Hook thing was like the nicest, most moving thing I've ever seen. But
yeah,
these guys are coming out of the locker room like, let's kill them, let's kill each other. And then you see that, and it's like, oh, they just crumbled to nothing. It's like, okay, let's just get the kickoff and play. Like, it's a very strange event, the Super Bowl.
Yeah, the halftime show it's just you almost feel like you're playing two different games. Like they're not two different halves, they're two different games. I remember when the Pats played the Rams, and I think we're up 14-3 at halftime. Mm-hmm. And we had just scored, and it was just people were just in disbelief. They're so fired up, they're so happy. And we have all the momentum, and everybody's running the locker room like just maniacs, and U2 comes out and they do, but then 35 minutes later, it's like, all right, we have none of the momentum now.
It's forget what you're there for.
Anyway, and I remember being really nervous in that beginning of that third quarter that we had lost whatever we had. Barnwell is very anti-momentum. We're gonna have to call him, but anyway, so it came down to the fact that the Niners first of all, terrible inside the 10. And maybe that's just the offense they have because Vernon Davis is really their only like possession guy.
Yeah.
But I didn't think Harbaugh got killed enough for how bad he managed that last 2.5 minutes.
I was thinking that too. And sorry, Niners fans, now you have a glimpse of what it's like to root for a team run by Jason Garrett. But
if that's bad. Andy Reid, I mean, people are talking about that a week later.
Right.
So 2.5 minutes left. They're on the 7. Or no, less than that. They run a play. They run a terrible run in the middle of the line, which hadn't worked the whole day.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's second and goal from the 5. They let 30 seconds run off to the 2-minute warning for reasons that remain unclear.
Yeah.
Because they had 2 timeouts left. And if they had gotten one more play out before the 2-minute,
it would have saved the time. It would save the clock stoppage.
They would have done that. It would basically they were leaving themselves with no protection on the other end of that 2-minute warning if for some reason they didn't score. And I think Harbaugh just assumed they were going to score, Jim Harbaugh. But then the 3rd and 4th down plays were a travesty. He calls before the 3rd down, instead of taking the delay of game, they call a timeout.
Yeah.
So now it's like you have to score in these 2 plays or you're going to lose.
Right.
Because at that point, there's 1:55 left or 2 minutes left, whatever, and they have 2 plays but only 1 timeout. It's impossible for them to get the ball back and do anything. So then they run a terrible 3rd down play.
That's the worst to me. The 3rd is worse than the 4th. The out that's just not going to make it.
Right.
It's going to be 3 yards short. Your best chance is getting a pass interference call, which you're not going to call down there.
And we're watching it thinking they're just going to throw to Vernon Davis every time.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the Niners haven't been able to cover him this whole game. They weren't throwing him to it anyway, but just that's the play they run in that situation. You just send the tight end over the middle, you get it to him.
Right. Kaepernick needs to run or Vernon Davis needs to catch the ball. Doesn't seem like there's much left.
So bad 3rd down play. Then the 4th down play, and this is something we didn't even think about when we were at the game. So at that point, they have no chance because they only have 1 timeout left. If they don't score, even if you call 1 timeout, you get the ball back with 5 seconds left.
Mm-hmm.
They should have called a timeout before the 4th down play.
Right.
At least talk it over.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know, the whole team looked rattled at that point.
I think they thought they were going to score. They didn't want to leave too much time on the clock. I think the Ravens could have come down and kicked a field goal in a minute or something. I mean, I wasn't too confident that the game would have been over if the Niners would have scored.
Oh yeah, we thought it was going to overtime. We thought how that was going to play out. I just think I think it's pretty risky to not leave yourself any sort of leeway because with the 2-minute warning and the 2 timeouts, even if you don't score, they're trapped on their own 3-yard line. Yeah. You're going to get the ball back at midfield.
Just like the Ravens trapped them. It wasn't a time issue, but
the fake field
goal.
Goal.
Punt, fake field goal on 4th and 9. And I don't know, we both thought, wow, that's too many yards to go to fake that play, with the camping around. But it ended up being a good thing. You got the rookie quarterback inside practically a rookie quarterback inside his own 10 in the Super Bowl. That's maybe where you want him to be, right?
It was semi-defensible. I just think 9 yards is a lot of yards for a kicker to get. It's just. But the play, all that guy had to do was make the one block, and he just couldn't totally block. I think it was Willis.
Right.
But as you said, it ended up you pinned the people on the 5, and we were talking about. I think it was the 3rd or 4th quarter, whenever the Ravens had 4th and 2, and from the 4th and goal from the 2, and kicked the field goal.
Just go for it.
I'm just so tired of seeing that.
Yeah. I think it got to a point there because I think John Harbaugh normally would have gone for it, but I think that he may have had his little brother in mind there. He might have been like, "Oh man, we're not going to vacation for a year and a half if I go for it twice on 4th down, once faking it."
He's going to think I'm sticking it.
Can't do this to him.
Yeah. So anyway, the Ravens won. Flacco was fantastic.
He really was, and in that 4th quarter, we look at each other, and I said to you, I was like, wow, usually at this point, we're like, so-and-so is going to blow this. Now's the time where so-and-so blows this. And I wasn't confident that either one was going to blow it, either one of the quarterbacks.
Either quarterback, yeah.
Yeah. They were so good all year.
Once Kaepernick realized that he could just take off and run whenever he wanted, it opened up the whole game.
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't a very well coached game.
Yeah.
I thought the Niners, they're going to be thinking about that game for a long, long time because they just didn't play well. They had some coaching screw ups, and to have a chance to win that game and somehow not get it done.
Well, let me just say this about Randy Moss, who it's when you're at the game, if you hate Randy Moss, that goes tenfold if you're at the game because he doesn't run routes that he's not involved in. He doesn't run routes that he is involved in.
He quits on passes that are coming to him.
He quits on passes when he gets pass interfered with. He doesn't argue. There's just really nothing to him. And I know he made a pretty big catch. He had 2 catches, marvelous. But one of them was pretty good. Dug him out of a hole. But God, can we be done with that guy? What does any team see in that guy?
His best play was on the play that Vernon Davis dropped the bomb. That ultimately, they ended up getting inside the 10 anyway, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But Moss, it was the one time all game he ran really hard, and he cleared out the whole middle of the field for Davis. But
I think they're one decent receiver away from being almost completely unbeatable. That team. That
was my takeaway watching because it got to the point with Moss where they were just sitting him on some plays and they had no third receiver. They were lining out fullbacks and stuff like that. It was really just Crabtree and Vernon Davis. Mm-hmm. I thought they should just turn to Davis over and over again. Baltimore was, shading the whole defense over to him, trying not to let them
even when he
beat
was
them.
covered, he was catching the ball.
Ray Lewis looked so slow in person. That was my other takeaway, from the in-person takeaways. Like, he can't cover anybody. I know he's smart. I know he's calling the offense. I know the strengths outweigh the weaknesses. But I just think Davis should have had 20 catches in that game.
Yeah. Under 11.5 tackles was a good bet for Ray Lewis.
So we're okay with Baltimore as the champ, right? I feel like they deserved it.
I think so, but I think just like in these last few years, well, it depends. Do you want the team to dominate 90% of the year, or are we okay with this Major League Baseball playoff format where you sort of flip a coin and any team can win now? Because I think that's the Ravens, and and God bless them. The huge wins against the Broncos and the Patriots, and surviving 4th and 29. Against the Chargers, we didn't think about that. I mean, they would have been a 6 seed going to Houston probably if that didn't happen. But I mean, you can't deny they were the best team in the playoffs.
That is something with football though, where you start getting you get some breaks, you come through in a couple impossible moments, and you just start feeling like it's going to happen. And I do think that team had that attitude, like no matter what was happening in the game, they weren't out of it. And
I mean, that one play with Flacco, I mean, we watched it. That ball seemed like it was in the air forever. Bolden seemed like he dragged across 2 fields to get to that ball. Remember when he was rolling right? I think it was third and long.
Oh, it was the helmet catch flashback pass. Yeah. And the Niners finally started getting breaks near the end. But, as you said, it's a little March Madness-y now. But we've known that. We've known that for the last couple of years. My theory is, you have a circle. I've said this in the podcast. It's a circle, and by the end of the season, 5 or 6 teams are in that circle, and we know who they are.
Yeah.
And they play each other, and the games come down to 1 or 2 or 3 breaks either way. Like, if the Patriots had scored a touchdown at the end of the first half, instead of the play Brady screwed up, and we would have been up 17-6 going to halftime. I think we win the game.
Right. And it's just different from those Patriot years when, years ago, Patriots dominated the regular season, dominated the playoffs, then get to the Super Bowl and play a close game against the Panthers or the Eagles. I don't know what I like better, but this is definitely an entertaining game.
I think the 03-04 Patriots were probably the last great team.
From beginning to end? Yeah.
Just the team that, it really would have been an accident if they didn't win the Super Bowl. Even the 07 Patriots, because they couldn't run the ball, I thought by the time January rolled around and their defense was older, and it was a beatable team. The 04 Patriots, I just felt like we were going to, it would have been shocking if they didn't win the Super Bowl. I'm trying to think, is there another team? Every other team since then you felt like they're a little flawed.
I mean, the 2010 Cowboys, if they had a break, I think that would have been up there with the greatest of all time, but we won't get into that.
So, yeah, and the bottom line is Baltimore won the Super Bowl partially because the dude on Denver forgot to run back 5 extra yards on that Joe Flacco pass.
Yep.
The Jacoby Jones signing was just huge. And that was somebody anybody could have had. Like, I was thinking the Patriots haven't had a good kick returner forever. They don't have a deep threat. That guy was just sitting there, and the Ravens, I thought he had an impact. Bolden, for whatever reason, is better than he was 3 years ago.
You say whatever reason. You think you know what reason. But.
Well, no, I'm just saying. He was a guy who was looked like he was at a different phase of his career. Now all of a sudden is jumping over people.
Great pickup. They've got, I don't know if it's lucky or smart with these free agent pickups. Yeah. Done it.
I picked the Ravens and the Seahawks before the season as my Super Bowl pick.
You did? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I did. I picked. I was way off.
I picked the Ravens to, I think, win the Super Bowl over the Seattle Seahawks, which
Seahawks,
almost happened.
I think they were the best team in the NFC.
You know what? We were talking about that. I think the Seahawks really were the best team.
Yeah.
I mean, not the best team. The Ravens were the best team. I think the Seahawks were the team that if they played the season 100 times somehow, I think the Seahawks would have won the title the most times.
Yeah.
I think that all the combinations fit them the best. The Niners, the Kaepernick thing, just the way how he'd start some of those games a little slow or whatever was going on, like they fell behind 20 points in 2 straight games.
Right.
That's not good. You don't deserve to win the Super Bowl if that's happening.
Right. I don't know what happened with them because the first pass was complete to Vernon Davis, right, and then called back, and they couldn't get over that hump for like
they lined up
quarter and a half.
Remember they lined up incorrectly?
Yeah.
How do you do that in the first Super Bowl play?
I don't know.
They also had like the Chris Culver thing was bad karma. The Ravens had the O.J. Brigance thing, which was good karma, and Ray Lewis retiring, and it just did feel like it just felt like from a karma standpoint, the Ravens. I wish I had thought
you
about
and I
it more.
took the Niners. That's karma.
Yeah, we did. We rallied back though with the halftime bet.
We did. That's true.
And we had money on 18-1 for Vernon Davis that I still feel like was a great bet. I'm very proud of that bet. I've never been more proud to lose $200.
We were so psyched after the first completion. You're right.
Yeah.
We won our last bet of the year. I forgot the halftime bet. That's all you ever need.
So now this is it. Now we go into a really, really dark time.
Very sad.
For your psyche. Yeah, you're always very sad. You go in a little funk. Oh, we should mention we went out after the game. You filmed a bit that ran on Jimmy Kimmel Live last night.
Yeah, I want to thank your Grantland and ESPN employees for helping me out there. The crew was great. And
Dave Jacoby was corralling people. It was great. And
Jacoby, Harlan, we got a lot of the greats. And what I did was I came up to 49ers fans after the game and consoled them by making them feel uncomfortable. Basically, I hugged them and basically told them how bad their team was. I don't know. You have to watch. It's on YouTube. So.
Well, we thought more people would be mad.
Yeah.
But the Niners fans were so bummed out. It was actually, I think they enjoyed being consoled.
Yeah, I think they did. The first round, as they were going out of the stadium, were devastated, and a lot of them didn't sign releases, so you'll never see what happened with them. But I ran into a little trouble. I don't think you were around for that, but I just thank Jesus Christ that the Ravens didn't lose, because that would have been a whole different bit, and I don't think I'd be talking to you right now.
Yeah, I think you'd be in the hospital, and we'd be talking about. So we have some bad news about Cousin Sal. Yeah, the Ravens fans all week. Kudos to them. They really brought back the old school sports fan.
I got to tell you, I think a lot of them didn't get into the stadium. I think they just were there as early as like Wednesday to party, because then when we got to the game, it sounded like the Ravens had more fans, but I don't know if they did. I think they were just louder. That entire lower section was filled with Niners fans, the rich seats. I think the middle section was at least half Niners fans. The Ravens fans, they really, really brought it, and chanting and everything, and they did.
It was an interesting class breakdown. The Niners were in the lower bowl.
Mm-hmm.
The mixed bowl middle bowl was pretty split, and then the Ravens were in the upper deck. Like it was basically the Social Network taking on The Wire.
I think right, and I think they were right. I think they were making noise outside the stadium too, just waiting for the game.
They were loud all week. It was great. It was. Kudos to the Ravens fan base. I liked the energy. They were just drunk and rowdy and happy.
Yeah.
And fired up that team was in the Super Bowl. I really liked them. Niner fans. not boisterous, I will say.
No, I think the first podcast we did after after we found out who was in the Super Bowl, we thought it would be overwhelming Niners fans, just the money and just that they hadn't been in the Super Bowl and since what was it, 90? What am I thinking? 94, 96, 96?
I will say I'm glad you hadn't been in like 9 years.
Yeah.
I love the Super Bowl. I just love going, and I think the best part of the Super Bowl is when a moment like what actually happened in that game happens, where all of a sudden something crazy is happening, and there's just an energy that you don't feel in any other game, because at most games everybody's rooting for the same team.
Right.
And in this game it's a little more like a European soccer match or something, but sometimes you have these moments where just people are starting to like, oh man, this could be great. And when the Niners, after they scored the first touchdown, when they got the ball back and started driving again, the buzz in the building was just phenomenal.
Pretty exciting, definitely.
Plus, what a great city. I mean, I've said this a million times, but New Orleans and Miami should be the 2 Super Bowl locations. That's it. We're done.
Yeah, I just think New Orleans. I think until Vegas gets his act together, I think it's just New Orleans. There's so much great stuff about that, and then so much terrible stuff, which we could talk about with the house seats.
Oh yeah. Well, we have. Yeah. It's first of all, every vice you have is going to come out of New Orleans. You name it, it's making an appearance.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to eat healthy. I think I had bread pudding 3 days in a row.
Yeah. It was terrible.
I was eating fried food left and right. Like, my body's like kind of in shock. There may have been a couple cigarettes. I can neither confirm nor deny.
Yeah.
Jacoby and I may have been at Harrah's.
There's no clock. It just goes all night and day. And and like just for this eating contest, like I felt like, wow, my last 6 meals before the eating contest with these gluttonous displays I put on these restaurants. It's like that's why they don't fly the boxers out before their fights in Vegas. They don't get them to Vegas until like a week before, so they don't.
Jacoby and I came back from the casino very late one night, and it turned out that one of our bosses was going to work.
Yeah.
As we were coming in, and made a point of telling us that the next day, and it was awkward. I'm not gonna lie, because I'm not 20 anymore.
No, you're part of the Fast and Furious crew. That's how you do it.
But listen, if you have a casino that close to your downtown, I can't help myself.
Yeah,
I just can't. Anyway, so we did house seats on Saturday.
Right.
And there was a lot of action both ways. House got bid up to -200 at one point.
Yeah.
You got bet down, partially because of me, because I was making the case for you.
Right.
And I don't want to give away anything that happened. But I will say that I think everybody who was in the room that day, their lives were changed.
Why don't you want to give it away? Like, you think people won't? I mean, if I tell people, and I am going to tell people, it's one of the most compelling things you'll see on the internet. I mean, and you should watch it, regardless of if we say the outcome right now.
I don't know if compelling is the word I'd use. I mean, you can use that word. I'm just not saying that might not be the right word.
I need to talk to you about this off the air, but I think, well, I don't know. I think we may want to censor some of it.
we
believe me, I hate when you guys censor everything, but now I'm calling for it might just be too much for the viewer.
We have to. We don't know, and we might just never release it. It might be like that Guns N' Roses album that never came out. We might just for 20 years there'll be rumors it's coming out.
Yeah.
But I would like to announce that the winner of the contest was Joe House.
Yeah. Yes, he did.
He won. There were 3 judges, and he won on all 3 judges' scorecards. Other than that, we don't want to give anything away.
Well, yeah, but that doesn't tell a thousandth of the story. So, and I will say he won fair and square. But that you should definitely watch.
And maybe the highlight or the low light, I'm not sure, is Dave Jacoby overheard nobody near him, not saying it to anybody, muttering to himself, "What am I doing with my life?"
Yeah.
An actual quote for Dave Jacoby.
Just a few years ago, he directed Juno, and now here he is. But yeah, it was bad.
I also want to say there was more physical activity than I expected.
Oh yeah, there was running around. There was a lot of running around.
Who knew there was going to be running?
If you want to see Simmons run for his life, just tune in just for that.
We did this at the Acme Oyster House.
Yeah.
They could not have been more gracious.
They were
The
very
food
nice.
was terrific, and we just loved everybody there. And
I apologize for everyone who bet on me, and I'll make it up to you somehow. But I don't know. When you watch, you'll see. I gave it more than my all.
yeah, without giving too much away, you set a really strong pace that came back to haunt you. But listen, it was one of the great nights or great days, and amazingly, both of you guys rallied and came out that night, which
Yeah.
I will never forget.
Right.
Both as a friend and as a competitor. Frazier and Ali, after the Thriller in Manila, they both went to the hospital.
That's right. The show must
Rocky
go
and
on.
Apollo, after their first fight, they went to the hospital.
Yeah.
You guys went out in New Orleans, which I
That's
was
right.
very proud.
Well, good.
And we saw Jay-Z Justin Timberlake.
Well, let
thing,
me
and it
say
was-
the highlight. What was the highlight as far as people you met at the Super Bowl? Why do you even have to think about it?
Other than Pitbull?
Oh, come on. Person you met who approached you.
Oh yeah, I met Paul McCartney.
Yeah, and then we're arguing forever if that's the biggest celebrity you've ever met. And you said Barack Obama. We went back and forth, but Paul McCartney approached you. You want to tell the story?
Yeah. So we were at this Bud Light party where Flo Rida and Pitbull were playing. And by the way, I can now do a Pitbull impersonation,
Yeah.
which I might have to do for the internet. And some nice kid came over to me and introduced himself and said he was a big Celtic fan. He loved reading me and all that, like very nice. And we talked for like a minute, and then he left, and his mom came over and said, thanks for talking to him, meant a lot to him. I was like, okay. Then the kid stands back, and he's standing next to Paul McCartney, who was like, 15 feet away.
Paul McCartney looks like he's 38 years old, by the way.
Yeah, he looks great. He looks better than I do.
Yeah, he's got hair a teenager would covet.
And I got to say, he was genuinely enjoying Flo Rida.
Yeah.
Which is something I never thought I would say or witness.
Mm-hmm.
So then he walks over and shakes my hand and says, just want to thank you for meeting my stepson. That meant a lot to him. He's a big fan. And I was like, I'm a big fan of you. And it was just talk for 10 seconds. Then he left. And then I was just dumbfounded because, like, I just met a Beatle.
Well, you want me to say how the conversation really went? Paul McCartney approaches you. He's like, hello and good jolly day, bloke. I want to thank you for spending time with my stepson. I'm using Irish. Okay.
That was good. I liked it.
And then you respond to it. And I want to thank you, Paul McCartney, for being a Beatle. And then he just stared at you and walked away. Something like that.
So that night we were deciding who was a bigger celebrity to meet, Obama or Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
And this was like a legit argument. Like, we really were arguing about this.
Obviously, right now it's Obama. But when all is said and done, like every year before 7 years ago and every year after 7 years from now, what would you say? And then we threw Michael Jackson in the mix, and he supposedly is right number one at the top of the list. But
well, I came up with another argument because I think Paul McCartney is a slightly bigger celebrity. I came up with a bigger argument for this.
Mm-hmm.
So Paul McCartney's been a celebrity since like the early 1960s.
Right.
So that is now we're up to about 60 years of him being a celebrity, or mid 1960s, whatever.
Yeah.
So he's been a major, as high A-list as you can get celebrity now for like 4 generations of people.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Obama has only been a celebrity for the last 5 years. So Paul McCartney has been a celebrity for more people than Obama has.
I agree.
So
but now the counter to that is, which David Cho brought up, Grantland superstar. He says when the history books are written about the United States, if there's 10 paragraphs, one of them is devoted to Barack Obama, no matter what year you do this from now on. First black president, which I didn't even know he was the first black president.
Yeah, I know. You were stunned.
Different.
We told you that on Saturday night.
Yeah.
And then, but I mean, like Paul McCartney and the Beatles, like he's probably the most famous, beloved person in the history of Great Britain, right? Who's not royalty?
I think so. Yeah, Adam Ant. Yeah, Paul McCartney.
He has a nickname. They call him Maka.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But And then the Beatles' most famous band of all time. He's the only living Beatle. You know what would help him if Ringo is Ringo still alive?
Ringo is alive. Yeah. Ringo and
Yeah,
Paul.
because I think the last living Beatle status would help one of them. It's going to push one of them to a higher level.
Well, isn't the fact that you didn't know if Ringo was alive? I mean, Paul might as well be the last living Beatle.
It's a great point.
Now, let me put something out there. I had a celebrity encounter that I want to put up there maybe as the biggest of all time. The DirecTV Genie.
Yeah, you saw her and I didn't.
Yeah.
And
I wasn't going to introduce you to her because that would have bummed me out if she stopped and talked to you. But, yeah, good looking in real life, let me tell you.
Yeah, and she was causing a ruckus. And I also want to say that Justin Timberlake I would not leave alone with my wife for 3 minutes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That guy he's a great performer, and he just owns the room, but every girl was ready to go.
Oh, man.
He really could have just pointed out to the crowd and just pointed at anybody, and they would have come up and had sex.
That would have been it. They would have put their phones down. Everyone's videotaping him. Yeah.
He did a cover of Need You Tonight by NXS, which I had always was under the impression was uncoverable, and made it a JT song, and it was the single best song he played.
Yeah.
We were saying he should just do that entire Kick album.
Right.
And just release it, just a cover of it. Like, it was almost like he's better at singing NXS songs than NXS was.
Yeah,
and NXS was probably one of the best bands of that decade.
I was excited when Jacoby said we're getting JT on the podcast, and I looked up. It was Justin Tuck in a Subway T-shirt.
That was cool, and we. I'm trying to think. Was there any other crazy thing that happened other than
that eating contest was nuts? Let's see.
50 hours of gambling. I guess that was a little crazy.
Gambling, Pitbull, Flowrider. No, I think that was
Jay-Z's cameo in the Justin Timberlake concert could have lasted a tad longer.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other thing.
I felt like I know this isn't the case, but it felt like Timberlake shut him out a little bit. But I know how
just want him to go.
They just do whatever they want to do, and then that's it, right? And that confirmed that he wasn't going to show up to with Beyonce.
I wish I could buy stock in that tour.
Yeah.
Timberlake, Jay-Z. I'm pretty confident that one's going to sell out 100%.
Pretty good.
The only other thing was, at what point during the Super Bowl we're in a suite with the guy who runs Twitter, Dick Costello, and I looked at my BlackBerry.
That's a great line.
And I was like, Twitter's down, huh? And the guy, he was like, what? Like his whole body convulsed. I literally almost had a heart attack.
He was very close from jumping from the rafters before finding out if he was serious or not.
and then was so upset afterwards that he fell for it.
Yeah.
It was just a good moment.
Yeah, I think you're unverified now. After that joke.
Yeah, I think he gave away my password to the Chinese. But if you're ever in a situation where you meet Dick Costello, just tell him Twitter's down and watch the reaction.
Yeah,
that's great.
Exactly.
I highly recommend it. Last thing on New Orleans, I was there in 2002 for the Super Bowl. It was definitely beaten up at that point. 2008 for NBA All-Star, and it was coming back from Katrina.
Mm-hmm.
It could barely host a big event at that point. They were coming back. The city was in rough shape, but they were trying to rebuild it. Mm-hmm. And now in 2013, I thought it was in the best shape. The downtown was in the best shape I've ever seen.
Definitely. Yeah, it looked great. And take it from a guy who ate 75 pounds of Gulf shrimp over 3 days. They're back. They're back and better than ever.
The number one thing for you was the charbroiled oysters.
Yeah.
You could have eaten 150.
That was easy. I was going to swallow the shells. It was so easy. Yeah. I know. Ah, man.
What a great place.
I have so many regrets, but we can't talk about it. So
no.
Follow up.
I will say though that
commentary.
New Orleans should supplant Vegas at this point.
Yeah.
It should be the go-to place.
I agree. A couple more casinos, right?
No, one more casino would be nice.
Yeah.
But it was just great. Anyway, the Cuz.
We should thank Diageo too, who.
Oh, we forgot to thank Diageo. Yeah, they put you in. We wouldn't have been able to have house seats if.
Right. Yeah, screw them. Why am I so excited about thanking Diageo? I wouldn't have lost the bet. But
I thanked them by drinking Grey Goose all weekend.
I think. Well, let's be fair. They set me up in at best a 3-star hotel. So we're not going to give them the ringingest of endorsements.
There were no rooms.
Guinness, it does the job, and Red Stripe, okay in a pinch, and Don Julio better than average. So there you go. There's our plug for Diageo.
Don Julio.
Don Julio, yeah.
We know a lot about Don Julio now. We're at some dinner where we learned about. It was like a tequila Don Julio tasting test.
Yeah.
And I got to be honest, all tequila tastes the same to me.
Don't tell Don.
Is it okay for me to admit that?
I think maybe you just on our Diageo endorsement.
No. You can tell the difference in good tequila and bad tequila.
Right.
But if you're asking me to figure out the difference between this good tequila and that good tequila,
Can't do it. Yeah.
No. Maybe I don't have the taste palate for it.
No. Well,
I know when I'm drinking. The only thing I can tell you is I know when I'm drinking bad tequila, and that's not a good feeling.
Right.
But if I'm drinking good tequila, like you could be like, oh, smell the pear in this. It's like, what?
Mm-hmm. That's
Anyway.
true. All right, let me get out of here because I have to go to work. Bradley Cooper on tonight, Katie Mara, and so I'll keep it going every other week. A Grantland column. I'll be on, I guess, a podcast for Oscar props and NCAA props.
Yes. And can you tell your cousin that him tweeting a picture of 3 chefs during the Super Bowl was his all-time new nadir? Nadir.
All right. They were in the
you.
way of the screen. He couldn't see the game at all. So.
Cuz
Okay.
you may have lost, but you lost with an honor and a dignity that none of us will ever forget.
Thank you, and I urge everyone to watch and then turn it off immediately, and you'll know what I'm talking about.
Okay. All right. We'll see you later.
Good time.
Bye-bye.
Good job by you.
Good job.
There's a frenzy happening at Subway because footlong fanatics like you can score tons of prizes like cash, cars, airfare for a year, even free footlongs for life. Talking millions of winners. Get codes on 30-ounce drinks or Doritos chips and join the footlong frenzy today. Subway, eat fresh.
All right, let's bring in the winner of the third House Eats, which may never see the light of the day because we might destroy all copies. Joe House.
Yeah. How's the cuz feeling?
We didn't give away any details other than just to say that you won.
Okay.
But I did talk about the spirit of the competition and how proud I was of both of you that you went out that night.
That was nice. That's very nice of you. Thank you. It was a titanic battle.
It really was. And I didn't think either of you would be seen for days and possibly weeks.
I did really appreciate it. We got a lot of emails and texts from concerned friends of ours down there in New Orleans, making sure through the course of the afternoon and early evening that both of us were doing okay.
Yeah, the menu might have been a mistake. There was a lot of fried food on the menu.
In retrospect, is that your theory?
Yeah, that's my theory. I'm going to feel so bad when you die of a heart attack in like 11 years. Be like, oh, we killed House. Why did we do it? He could have lived until his 70s.
I switched to a vegan diet for at least this week.
I don't know what I want to do. I mean, after 6 days in New Orleans, you know how like the Tour de France cyclists they could change their blood?
Yes.
They could take out all their blood and just replace it with better blood. I'm kind of leaning that direction. I want to know how much that costs. Is there a website where I could do that?
Yes, we should have looked this up before we went to New Orleans. That should have been on the schedule for today, this morning.
It's just unbelievable. You could smoke indoors. They have liquor just everywhere. I mean, they're whipping liquor at you.
On the street. Liquor.
They have gravy and everything's fried. Gravy on everything. They have desserts that like you see on normal menus rarely.
Rarely.
Like, chocolate bread pudding souffle.
Yeah, many varieties of bread pudding. The most decadent bread puddings ever.
I had 3 nights of bread pudding in a row.
Yeah, I mean, because you don't see it that often, so you feel like, I got to go heavy on bread pudding this week.
And you lose all sense of responsibility. Just everything gets thrown out the window. I didn't do a podcast to write anything yesterday from a great Super Bowl. It's embarrassing. I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed by my performance.
Yeah, my coworkers gave me a lot of leeway yesterday.
From the farting?
No. I worked that through Sunday. My lovely wife, God bless her.
Oh, God.
No, everybody just knew to yesterday was a rest day, a recovery day.
Yeah.
And I'm still recovering. It's going to be recovery week. I went to the gym today for the first time. It felt like it was the first time in my life.
You're going to need about 100 more gym trips to make up for what happened on Saturday.
That is a fact. That is an absolute fact. So the cousin's doing okay?
Yeah, he's okay.
All right, good.
I don't know if emotionally he's okay, but I think he's okay. So you watched the Super Bowl.
I did.
What was your reaction to the GoDaddy commercial? I watched that last night. That was horrible.
It was disturbing. It was the
Why
most
did they
disturbing.
do that?
I don't know. Why did they do that?
Why did they do that?
What's the point of making 111 Americans uncomfortable?
And then they were claiming a win afterwards.
Of course they were.
It actually did inadvertently prove a theory that I've had for a long time, that if you change the dynamic of what a commercial is, and think about what's the point of a commercial? To get you to notice the product.
Right.
And that's really the only point. And they could say, you want to elevate your brand, all that stuff, but really it's just to get people to notice.
Yeah.
And if you're GoDaddy and what brand are you elevating? You're hawking URLs.
Domains.
What
Right.
do you care?
Yeah.
You got all these people to notice your product. So next year, I think they even go further.
Well, they're some people try and set the bar high. They set the bar low. They try and go under the bar every year. I mean, they definitely surpassed, the Danica Patrick might be naked ads each year. That was kind of one thing, and the sexy girl would go on the website for the uncensored version. All that silliness. They took the bar and set it a whole nother level lower with Bar Raffaelli. So
were you watching when that happened?
Yes.
And what was your
I turned it off. I started yelling, "Turn it off! Turn it off!" It was it was some kind of bad porn.
I think the biggest disappointment for me was that Monte Teo didn't do a commercial. If I was his media strategist, I would have demanded that he did a car commercial with him and his girlfriend driving in a car, only there was nobody in the passenger seat. Just do it. Just own it.
That's right. He needs to own it. That's exactly
own
right.
It. Michaela Maroney has set the blueprint.
He really would have, I think, improved his draft stock by 10 positions if he made light of the thing.
Such a bad job by him.
Well, he's still got a chance. It's not too late yet. The draft is in April.
The Super Bowl would have been nice, though.
Super Bowl would have been nice. That's 111 Americans he could have caught there.
So now we're off to basketball.
Very excited about that. It's time. We go right from the Super Bowl into preparing for March Madness, essentially. That's
a lot of storylines.
Yeah,
we have shows on Friday and Sunday this week for the NBA show, and the producer told me, I think we're just going to ratchet up with the trades until the trade deadline. I was like, okay, ready and willing.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's time, since the trade deadline is officially 2 weeks out.
We have Powell kind of laid the gauntlet down in the LA Times today.
I read the story. I liked everything about that story except for the writer talking about how Powell made him pay for the coffee.
Yeah, what was that?
Chill, homeboy. It's all good.
He should have paid for the coffee.
Powell, it doesn't matter who pays for the coffee.
I said the writer should have paid for it.
Sure, right.
Powell gave him a half hour of his time. I would pay for the coffee.
It was a good story, and it was kind of an exclusive, right?
It's really interesting. Powell said exactly what I have been saying, which is this is a disgrace. They should be pounding teams down low with these two guys. Yep. Nobody would be able to stop them except for a couple teams. And instead they went the other way because this guy's so attached to the system. But, they're probably going to make the playoffs is the irony, because the Houston-Portland combo, or Houston-Utah, I don't see them sticking around.
Yeah, they're both kind of falling off the rails.
And then, and this Chris Paul injury, I got to say, my detector's going off.
Uh-oh. You're concerned?
Yeah, it's a bruised kneecap. Sorry, they're going to have to bleep me. I bruised my kneecap playing basketball. You're back in 10 days. You don't miss 8 games with a bruised kneecap.
No,
I think he's hurt.
No.
And he's somebody that's had injuries before.
Here, look, your detector is going off, but this, I think, it might have a good explanation for it. We're right at the point of the season where a vet that knows, what his body's capable of and has expectations for a long playoff run, right now is a great time to get some rest. Right into the All-Star break, because All-Star for him isn't going to be like a restful time. He's got appearances, he's got the game, everything. So why not take a bunch of games off heading into the All-Star break and then come out recharged after All-Star?
Listen, you can keep believing that all you want. The team's in a tailspin, and they needed to win that Boston game.
They needed to win the Wiz game. The Wiz took care of them last night.
It's embarrassing. And I don't know. I learned with KG in 2009 never to believe anything when people thought, oh yeah, he'll be back. Bruised kneecap, you're not out for 4 weeks. That's ridiculous. It's got to be more than that.
I have a bruised thigh from being chased around by cousin Sal. I'm not sure when I'm going to be back from that.
I mean, at least tell us, like, all right, it's a little more than a bruised kneecap. There might be some cartilage or whatever. So there were rumors about a KG trade yesterday that I thought were pretty fascinating.
Well, they were all made-up rumors, right? Or is there some
Not necessarily. That guy Sean Devaney, he's reputable.
Okay.
And it makes sense in a lot of levels. But so KG has a no-trade clause.
Yep.
KG would only go to an LA team. Finally somebody wrote this today, but I mean this is something everybody knows. He's not leaving Boston unless he goes because he has a giant house in Malibu, and if he came to LA, I think that's the only way he greenlights a trade.
Great.
Now, the Lakers are kind of interesting for him too.
Oh.
That's the one that people have glossed over.
He's a lot more complimentary to what it seems that D'Antoni is trying to accomplish with Dwight Howard than Powell is.
Yeah, he shoots 20-footers. That's
exactly
what he does. Or I guess like 18-footers.
Right. He faces the basket and shoots, balls from the elbows.
Defensively, they'd be a monster.
I
mean, KG slipped a little
really
bit,
compensate for one of the most fascinating things I read in the last handful of days, and maybe this is old news, but Dwight was quoted as saying, "I'm only 75%." I mean, you have no idea how hard it is coming back from this injury. Even sitting here in this chair right now, my fingers and toes are tingling from sitting here.
Right.
You see all those quotes?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there you go. The addition of KG, you're only getting 75% of Dwight Howard on the defensive end, and you can tell because the Lakers have been all season long in the top half of the league with offensive efficiency, where they stink is playing defense.
Yep. They stink,
and that's
stink,
on Dwight
stink.
Howard.
It's not just that. It's like how slow they are. Teams can just run them.
Right.
Their transition defense is horrific.
Horrific. That's
Artest
right.
is slow, too. I mean, he's like a bulked-up tight end at this point. The KG thing's interesting because people seem to think he's going to retire at the end of this year. So if you got a commitment from him, stay this year. Well, stay this year and next year.
Yeah, one more year.
So, because he's got a 3-year deal, but they could make an agreement. They could just blow up the contract or change it so the third year is non-guaranteed, or just he could agree, yeah, I'll retire after 2014 because they want that cap space for LeBron.
Okay. The Lakers.
They being the Lakers.
Yeah. So go ahead. I want to hear it.
Let's say that the Celtics offered Garnett and Courtney Lee.
Okay.
For Gasol.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good trade for both teams.
It's a pretty interesting trade for both teams.
The only thing I worry about with Gasol to Boston is what are you trying to accomplish with that?
That's why it probably won't happen.
Okay.
And I actually think they're better off going the Clipper route.
What does that mean?
The Clipper route,
in terms of a trade with the Clippers.
Yeah, it's Bledsoe plus either DeAndre Jordan or Caron Butler, depending on who you believe. Caron Butler would do no good. I mean, that's basically you're guaranteeing a lottery team at that point because KG is the only big guy they have who's semi-competent.
Yeah.
And I'm not a DeAndre fan.
I think the goal for Boston has to be buying years, right? You want to buy as many years as you can buy with KG, because in terms of youth, you want to replace KG with two 25-year-olds or, a 23-year-old and a whatever.
All right, so here's my radical plan.
Let's hear it.
So DeAndre has 2 years left after this one for like $22 million. That's not good.
No, too much
overpaid.
Money. Too much money.
Butler has $8 million this year, $8 million next year. Tough juice.
Yep.
So you trade Garnett for Bledsoe and DeAndre.
Yeah.
Then you call Sacramento.
Oh.
And you say, you're moving to Seattle next year. You need a face for that franchise.
Uh-huh.
You're bottoming out anyway this year.
Yeah.
We will trade you Rajon Rondo.
Oh.
You give us DeMarcus Cousins, Jimmer Fredette, and we'll take John Salmons' terrible contract off your hands.
Interesting.
So now I have DeAndre Jordan, Eric Bledsoe, DeMarcus Cousins.
Wow.
And Jimmer Fredette.
And Pierce, who hangs on? Who's left?
Keep Pierce.
Right. So yeah.
Can't get fair value for him.
Pierce, Sullinger. What's that team?
Sullinger's out for the year.
No, but I mean going into. Oh, you're talking about for the playoff run right now.
I'm just talking about in general as a long-term move.
Yeah. Well,
you'd be better short-term.
I'm trying to plot out what that roster looks like. What's that 2013, 2014 roster?
Well, so for this season, DeAndre and DeMarcus together.
Yeah.
Paul Pierce, John Salmons, Bledsoe, Avery Bradley.
Yeah.
And Courtney Lee,
Jason
Bass. Terry, Brandon Bass.
That's a team that.
It's a pretty interesting team all of a sudden. My team is interesting at that point.
It's hard to say how the chemistry would come together.
If I'm Sacramento, I bottom out for this year, which is what I want to do anyway. I kill my team
rapidly heading in that direction.
Yeah, this season's a disaster anyway. Then next year, I have Rondo, who's going to be ready in time for the season. I have a face for my franchise. Plus, I have a top 3 lottery pick. I still have. The
only problem is there's a scowl on that face. The guy needs to smile a little more.
Rondo?
Yeah, he's always got a scowl.
There's a way for Sacramento to turn what they have turn the different pieces that they have into something better. I think Tariq Evans has real trade value.
It seems like he's more of an asset that they would want to move than DeMarcus. Don't they want to hold on to DeMarcus? Wouldn't the Seattle owners insist on holding on to DeMarcus?
I don't know. Would they?
It's a tough one.
Do you want to start your new franchise? Listen, I'm the leader of the DeMarcus bandwagon.
Right.
I would never trade him.
Yes.
But I'd have to think about it if Rondo was on the table. If I had a chance to get one of the best 13 players in the league who's now in FU mode because his team traded him when he was hurt. And I get to open my Seattle team with him. He's a famous face that you could sell as part of everything that's going on with your team.
And then you wouldn't – I don't know whether or not you would worry about kind of injury risk going forward because he's been pretty durable.
Yeah.
Right?
Tariq Evans is somebody that I think he's a real wild card at this trade deadline because if he's coming off your bench as your second unit scorer, he's overqualified to be that guy. If you just tell him, hey, Tariq, you're in charge of the second unit. You get to shoot every time. This is your show. We give that to you. You just come in and score. Do your thing. We're going to give you 2 10-minute blocks and just take as many shots as you want. Pretty interesting monkey wrench coming off the bench. Nobody has a guy like that. Jamal Crawford, and that's it. But Jamal Crawford isn't the coast-to-coast kind of scorer that this guy is. If he was on the right team.
Got an under-regarded inside game. He's big shoulder-wise. He doesn't go that hard, often enough for my liking, but he's a big fella.
I would go after everybody in that team. That team is a mess. Bad owners. Bad coach, poorly put together, one of the worst put together teams anybody's done in the last 5 years. Just nobody has any correlation.
At the beginning of the year with the over-unders, how weird it was.
We made fun of them. You actually liked them a little more than I did.
Yeah, and I think they're in the running still. I'm going to look at the over-unders. We're halfway through the season. I want to see how we're doing.
I think the only one I really messed up was Indiana.
Did we disagree on Indiana?
I don't think we disagreed. I just didn't think they were going to be as good this year.
Yeah. Well, their number was like.
Oh, and the Clippers.
We messed up the Clippers big time.
I don't know if we did though.
Oh, well,
what's their record now?
That's right. That's a great point. The same is true of the Knicks. I thought at the beginning of the season we really messed up the Knicks, but the Knicks have been.
Yeah, the Knicks have kind of come back to.
Yeah, they've regressed a little.
Oh, I'm trying to find the standings, which God forbid.
I'm going to get Portland wrong. You're going to win Portland. You believe.
Didn't they fell back to earth a little bit though?
Yeah, but they're still.
Yeah, so the Clips are suddenly 34-16. So I think their over under was what, 49?
I don't have that thing handy. Yeah, it was in the high 40s.
It was in the high 40s. The West is pretty fascinating because Golden State is suddenly a game out of third place. And then Denver, who was practically 500 when they got murdered by that schedule, all of a sudden they're 2 games out of third place.
Yeah,
so 4 teams in the 3 to 6 range. And then the Spurs just will not let go of that 1 seed.
I still like Denver coming on.
Yeah, they're really tough at home. What's their home record? 20-3.
I like them a lot also at the trade deadline. It feels like they have a move in them. They have so many assets.
They need to do they need something. I still think that's the team to watch if the Lakers want to move Dwight Howard because they're the logical third party for a Brook Lopez trade. Because if the Lakers trade Dwight Howard, he's going to Brooklyn.
Okay.
And
not Atlanta?
No.
What's Atlanta going to give up? Brook Lopez?
From what I've heard, he doesn't want to go home. It's Brooklyn 1, Dallas 2. That's the word in the street.
All right.
So Dallas has nothing to trade. They have nothing anybody wants. It's amazing.
What's amazing about that?
They're somehow asset free.
That was the team they built.
They have no assets that you
want. That's what Cubes did.
They have expiring contracts. What's funny is Vince Carter is actually an asset people want because he only makes like $3.5 million, and he's a swingman who can shoot threes.
That makes perfect sense.
But
he is their most valuable asset.
They have no asset to be involved in a Dwight Howard trade.
Mayo's been decent.
You're not getting Dwight Howard for OJ Mayo.
Probably not.
In the last year of his contract.
Probably not.
But so I think it's Brooklyn, which is where he wanted to go anyway. And if you're Brooklyn, you have to think about turning Brook Lopez into Dwight Howard, even if it's a terrible basketball move that I don't agree with.
Yeah, you have to think about it. Well, because
you have to think about it.
There's no way to really measure the Dwight Howard you're getting because you're not going to get it this season. You don't know what Dwight Howard you're getting.
I know what I disagree. I know what Dwight Howard I'm getting. I'm getting a broken down guy who isn't as good as he was 4 years ago. That's what I'm getting. Well, I'm getting a guy whose body is breaking down at a really strange age.
I don't think medical
FYI
science is going to agree with you.
You don't know who is?
Medical science. He is still recovering. Is he breaking down or is he recovering?
He's got a torn labrum now.
He's had a torn labrum for weeks now.
He had a herniated disc.
You can play with a torn labrum.
He's 27. You shouldn't be having injuries like this.
He's He's still rehabbing. These are the injuries that happen when you come back and not 100%.
Good. You can make all of these points to Mikhail Prokhorov after he trades him, and you're congratulating him for the trade. I'd rather have Brook Lopez. At least I know what I'm getting. But actually, Brook Lopez comes with his own set of issues, which is the fact that it's hard for him to stay on the floor. We need to see him put together a couple 82-game seasons. But if I'm Denver and I could flip, I don't know, JaVale and Wilson Chandler into Brook Lopez, I'm doing that.
Well, of course Denver would do that. Why would who ends up with JaVale?
Well, that's the problem with my scenarios. The Lakers would end up at JaVale.
I don't think LA would like that.
I think if they offered Gallinari and Chandler that's what the Lakers would get for Howard.
Yeah.
They do that.
You think?
Oh yeah.
Doesn't feel like enough.
Oh, they do that in a heartbeat.
Gallinari has regressed. He shoots worse every year.
D'Antoni has a big fat boner for him.
Well, he did have his best run, Gallinari, with D'Antoni.
He loved those guys. At this point, you're all in with D'Antoni. You got to build a roster around what he does because you've ruined Pau Gasol's life. Pau Gasol's just wandering around with a bad beard and just feeling
it's the
sad.
most confounding thing ever. They hired a coach, and they're going to build a team around the coach.
Yeah, over the talent. When you have
4 potential All-Stars, and you're going to build a team around the coach. Oh, okay.
Good move.
Great, Jimmy Buss.
I need to get Jimmy Buss on a podcast.
He's the Dan Snyder of the NBA.
Well, we're gonna break all of this stuff down in the next 2 weeks.
It's going to be great.
I am very excited to see what happens. There's a lot of the trade deadline's always fun, but there's a lot of teams in play this year. There's teams that could pack it in and go the other way, like Atlanta and Utah. The Celtics are obviously in that category. You have a team like Minnesota that really might trade Kevin Love.
Sure.
It's totally possible. Pekovic is a free agent.
Wow.
You can make a case they trade Kevin Love and pay Pekovic less. Kevin Love's leaving anyway. He's already made that clear.
Sure.
You trade him right now.
You
try to see what you can get. I don't know. And, there's a lot of stuff they could get for Kevin Love.
Oh, my goodness. Kidding?
Would you trade LaMarcus Aldridge for him?
No.
You wouldn't if you're Portland?
No, I wouldn't.
You wouldn't trade LaMarcus Aldridge for Kevin Love?
Kevin Love, how many games he played this year?
I would do that.
Kevin Love has had injuries here and there over his career, and I really don't like this wrist injury. Don't like it at all.
What do you think? His hand's never gonna work again?
I don't know. Why did it break twice in 10 weeks?
I don't know.
I don't like it.
I think it broke the second time because he came back too soon from the first one.
Right. I agree.
It's not a cripple.
He's a shooter, though. He's a three-point shooter. One of the skills that you want, one of the things that makes him one of the most unique players the past, dozen years, is his stroke from the three. Is that affected by this thing?
He'd be a great Laker.
He'd be an awesome Laker. That'd be really interesting.
That would be an interesting Dwight Howard trade.
Wow.
That was when we talked about that on TV, where Brook Lopez goes to Minnesota. Love goes to the Lakers. Minnesota needs a little bit more than Lopez for Love, though.
I think that's probably right.
But there's something there. There's going to be a big chess piece. And then Houston has cap space and wants to do something.
Yeah, of course he does. Daryl always wants to do something.
He always wants to do something.
Yeah.
He's got GMADD. Yeah, he's always available.
Well, they're still right there on the cusp of the 8, right? Do they still have the 8 at the moment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and they have cap space, too. I think they have like $7.5 million.
So there's deals. It's going to be great.
It's going to be really good. And then the Clips, obviously, with Chris becoming a free agent, they're not going to win with the team they have. They can't play Bledsoe down the road.
Yep. This
is the time to trade him, unfortunately.
Yeah, how have you been feeling
right
about
now.
This audition by Bledsoe?
Lukewarm.
Lukewarm. It's a good word for it. Gonna agree. Watched him last night. Not that impressed.
Yeah, I will say he's in a tough spot because he's running a team that was built for somebody else.
Yep.
I don't think it was a team that was necessarily built for him. And I think I think the Clips have guys that are tough to play with.
Sure.
And that's why Chris was the number 3 MVP candidate, because that team is like running a fancy race car. You have Blake Griffin so quirky, and you got to throw the alley-oops perfectly. Bledsoe doesn't throw good alley-oops, and his outside shot's not great.
Yeah.
And also, I think Crawford's really hard to play with. It's somebody. If you're a point guard, he's somebody that needs the ball. You just have to give him the ball and just stand there. So I'm not willing to give up on him. I think I was actually arguing with Horalibus Vulgaris about this on an email yesterday because he's not as big of a fan. And
who?
it was like one of our rare disagreements. Bledsoe.
Oh.
And he was saying just doesn't think he shoots well enough. And he's only 23.
Yeah. He can develop a shot.
I just think physically there's 6 people in the league like him.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You know? Like I went to a game where he went head-to-head against Russell Westbrook, and it was almost like watching like 2 superheroes go at it. And they didn't even like go full tilt because they knew kind of what the other guy could do. It was like they were kind of cautious.
Well, I think your point is the right one. It's unfair to really try and get your arms around what kind of player he is in this current Clipper iteration.
Plus, they have too many swingmen.
Yep.
They have guys who are unhappy already. Butler's really unhappy.
He is?
Yeah.
Because
he's not getting minutes. He gets yanked around. They have 3 small forwards. So he's not happy. And, DeAndre gets yanked in the fourth quarter. They have Vinny running the show. Vinny's starting to rear his ugly head.
DeAndre can make some free throws if he'd like to play in the fourth quarter.
Vinny mangled the end of the Boston game, which I didn't see, but all of a sudden my BlackBerry started going off, and I was like, oh, did somebody get traded? It's like, oh, I was getting Vinny emails. So he's still involved. And, I mean, if this goes on another week and Chris isn't coming back, I don't know what they do.
Maybe our 49.5 will come through.
Could happen. We might be dead on with a lot of this. Yeah. Joe House, congrats on your title.
Thank you very much.
It was.
I'm not proud.
It was an epic event. None of us will ever forget it, and there's a chance none of us will ever see it because we may just never run it.
That's okay. There was a lot of like I said, I'm not proud.
I said to Sal, it could be like the Guns N' Roses album they never released. We could just keep talking about it for 20 years. New editor working on the cut of House Eats 3, this controversial project. It's been 15 years in the making. Nobody's ever seen it.
Yeah, some things happened that are tough to capture. Correct.
Both competitors are now dead of heart illness.
Some things happened on that Saturday that maybe shouldn't be seen.
It was brutal. It was rough. Yeah. We'll talk to you next week.
Good time.
See you, bud.
See you.
So I get to sign off. Whoa!
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at Pod Center at ESPNradio.com.
Peace out.